Welcome to Migration Hub. We are in the Alte Münze. I'm the entrepreneur behind Migration Hub, and I want to thank you all for coming for this event. But before that, and before I introduce to what this event is going to be about, let me tell you what is Migration Hub, especially for our guests who have never been here. Migration Hub is a network of organizations working in the field of asylum, refugee, and migration integration. But besides that, it's a network that offers supports as well to migrants becoming entrepreneurs. Migration Hub also has these physical community spaces where we host events through all the year in order to bring and gather people, but most of all to share knowledge between each other. I have to be very optimistic today, although we welcome 2018 with bad news. A year ago exactly, Migration Hub was moving to this place. I remember that being here in front of everyone and thanking people for making this happen, but we had hope for working towards a better world, towards a world that will be respecting human rights. And we welcome 2018. And not much has changed. Many of us are working in this field. And there are plenty of organizations that we actually we work not only in Europe, but outside Europe, and even now in the United States, because we consider that now we need to do a much more transnational work. But the headlines and reports of big organizations wake us up at the beginning of 2018, telling us that there is a pushback against populism. And interestingly, populism used to say in tiny countries or in dictatorships. Now it's happening in democracies. They're democratizing the unpopular minorities. And some of these minorities are migrants. We have heard about the illiberal new order that is out there as well to portray even Muslims in a different way, attacking diasporas. And larger NGOs that we used to work with and have hopes that things can be changed, and I'm quoting them, bending the knees in supplication to continue working for human rights. How can we be in 2018 and talking about this? Well, to me it seems like a revolutionary act to defend human rights these days. So as a Migration Hub, I'm really thrilled and honored to get to know organizations like the Rațiu family who are here with us, because they don't only believe in principles that defend human rights, they're only trying to highlight it. And today we're going to see a documentary that I'm pretty sure that is going to wake us up, and we're all going to go out here inspired. It's going to be very emotional to us. But I don't know if you knew that this documentary was only shown in Berlin 3 times, during 3 days, sorry. And thanks to them, we're going to have this documentary here with us, and for free. So before I explain and we go more into what's going to happen tonight and what are you going to see, I want to welcome Nikolai Rațiu, the son of Ion Rațiu, who's the chairman of the Rațiu Family Charitable Foundation, who is making this happen. And I want to thank you in front of everyone, because thanks to organizations like you, and thanks to events like this, Migration Hub can continue offering this space for more entrepreneurs and for more activists working in the field of migrant, refugee, and asylum integration. Welcome, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Anna, and what a great space it is. It couldn't be better. You're probably wondering what the link is, a direct link between the Rațiu Democracy Award and migration and Migration Hub. Well, to me, why do we have migration? It's because people's human rights, wherever they have been living, have been destroyed, have been trampled upon. And that's why they migrate. And so our objective at the Rațiu Foundation is to teach younger generation democracy. Democracy is a way of life. Engagement with civil society. This is particularly in Romania, but the other side of it is the Ion Rațiu Democracy Award, which we do with every year, have done for 12 years, with the Woodrow Wilson Center in Washington. So during the course of the afternoon, evening, post-film, after the film, you'll find out more all about that. So what I want to just do now is tell you briefly how it's going to work, how it's going to proceed. We have the film. Following the film, there'll be a short Q&A with Ana Alvarez, director here, and Ai Weiwei. And then we have a panel where we have, they'll be properly introduced, but from art world, from human rights world, and Ai Weiwei, of course. And following that, we will have the award itself, and then to reward you all for being here for so long, refreshments at the behind there. So I think you're all ready for the film, so am I. So let's get started. Thank you.
I'm really honored and really thankful to welcome to the Migration Hub Mr. Ai Weiwei. Please join me on the stage. Well, thank you. Thanks for showing us something else different than statistics. What comes first, an artist or an activist? Because I saw an activist.
I guess I'm both, or I never can really separate artist from being an activist. Artist, in general, we think it's someone especially working in aesthetics, but I never see aesthetics can be separated from moral or judgment of right or wrong. Or, we have to have some perspectives about our environment, our world, our humanity, and who we are and how we treat other people. So all those issues, I just kind of think that's not a fact or aesthetic judgment. So for me, it's the same thing.
Are you still shy? Yeah. If you want to ask him something, this is our opportunity. If not,
yes, I am here to answer your question.
Hi, I'm Yonja. Thank you for this beautiful movie. I was wondering what we have seen. Everyone was very open to you and talked to you and smiled with you and shared their stories with you. I was wondering if you have ever encountered challenges when people didn't want to talk to you and where it was problematic to get representatives and refugees talking to you.
I have traveled 23 nations, 40 camps, largest camps around with maybe hundreds of thousands of refugees in about 6 months. We never met one refugee who doesn't want to talk to us. Their refugees don't want to show their face because their relatives are still living in a dangerous condition. They don't want to be identified. but they all want to talk to us. They all have too much story to tell, and even they know we cannot do anything about it. And it's not that they really have some kind of great hope. We can help them. I think they have been going through so much difficulty, and if I'm one of them, I will be totally discouraged. But since they are quite, I think they are quite brave people, and they still have hope for their children or their old grandma or something to be in a better place, or for their own education, or they believe they still can contribute to a healthy society. Only because they have been pushed away from their home. They used to have a peaceful life. They used to have neighbors. People speak same language or practice same religion, have respect, dignity. None of them are beggars. None of them are really asking for somebody to pity them. They're asking for a peaceful shelter. So I never met a person who says, no, we don't want to have an interview. But we asked a lot of politicians to be interviewed. Whoever you think in this film should appear, not appear, we asked not once, not twice, in writing, in all the ways to say, please say something. You're head of a state, or you're head of this, involved with the problem. Can we just interview you? Just give us your opinion. You can be right, you can be left, but say whatever you can say. We did those 700 interviews, but many of them never answer us. I think they're shy to answer us.
Well, now we have a panel discussion. We have a panel discussion coming up, but I just wanted to ask you a couple of questions. We needed to close this moment. I would like to introduce who's going to take over from here, but I just wanted to welcome you home to Migration Camp. You're also in Berlin. Please come in this place to continue doing what you're doing. And most importantly, let's set up the goal that we need more politicians to become activists, like activists. Thank you.
For one phenomenon, for the location we went in, everywhere we see non-governmental organizations such as your organization. I'm always totally impressed by young people from all kinds of professions, and they dedicate their knowledge, their passion, and their very essential understanding of what's right or wrong, and they make effort on those things. So this really changes the landscape. I think we need a lot of people to be involved, and never think you're not powerful. You're very powerful if you raise your voice. And there's always one person you can help, little children. You can always help. Just think about a little boy or girl needs your help.
Well, thank you so much. It's wonderful and a real privilege to be with you here tonight. I'm Christian Osterman, as it was just introduced. I'm currently a fellow at the American Academy here in Berlin, but for the last 10 plus years, 12 years, I've worked with the Rațiu Foundation on the Young Rațiu Democracy Award given by the Rațiu Foundation at the Wilson Center. The Wilson Center, my home institution in Washington, was created by Congress in 1968, is an institution that tries to bridge the memory of President Woodrow Wilson, the world of ideas and the world of policy. We had to bridge the divide between scholarship and public policy. We bring together the thinkers, the doers, policymakers, scholars, artists, and business leaders. And the hope and the belief that a frank and open dialogue will lead to better understanding, cooperation, and public policy. We've organized over the last in 12 years, the Young Rațiu Democracy Award, which on an annual basis tries to bring visibility and international recognition to the ideas and accomplishments of individuals around the world who are working on behalf of democracy and human rights. Organized with the Rațiu Democracy Center in Turda, and we have the leaders here as well, Pamela Rațiu and Indre Rațiu have joined us. Organized in cooperation with the Rațiu Center. We try, the event expresses the deep commitment to democracy of the late Ion Rațiu through his contributions as a Romanian politician and intellectual, and his interest, his deep interest in democratic change worldwide. Past awardees have included Egyptian democracy activist Saad Ibrahim, exiled university president and scholar Anatoly Mikhailov of Belarus, Polish intellectual Adam Mishnik, Russian blogger Oleg Kozlovsky, Ukrainian journalist Mustafa Nayem, and Bahraini human rights activist Nabil Bajab, as well as Azeri opposition leader and historian Jamil Hassanli. Deeply honored tonight to welcome Ai Weiwei to this panel as this year's Young Rațiu Democracy Award, recognizing and celebrating his work as a global humanist. Nicolae Rațiu, the president of the Rațiu Foundation, will say a few words at the end of this panel about the award. So let me just be very brief because we don't have much time. Let me just say that in a true Wilsonian and Rațiu fashion, Ai Weiwei bridges multiple worlds. He's a visual artist, conceptual artist, an architect, an author, an arts manager and producer, a filmmaker, dissident political activist, with his latest work, Human Flow, on a global scale. He's of course China's most controversial, internationally famous and eclectic artist, and his multimedia compositions are perhaps best known around the world for their anti-authoritarian bent. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Multiple occasions he has suffered detainment and harassment at the hands of the authorities, but has only strengthened his essential humanism. He is the co-recipient of the Nationaltafel Prize, as well as the Human Rights Foundation's award, and he also received Amnesty International's Ambassador of Conscience Award in 2015. The Rațiu Foundation was particularly inspired in this award, giving this award, by his 2014-2015 art installation and political meditation, Alcatraz, which explores ideas of confinement, what it means to be a modern political prisoner. Rațiu Foundation has brought together this wonderful panel to continue the conversation, about flowing from the documentary. Let me just briefly introduce co-panelists. Martin Ringenbach is the executive director of Pass the Crayon, a non-profit organization that fosters self-expression for refugee youth in Berlin through art workshops. He's previously worked within the Berlin tech scene with companies such as Zalando and Apple, and he's a self-made creative. He's also worked as an art seller for a Parisian art gallery, shoemaker, and assistant photographer for the Louvre. Peter Harrop, to my left, is a Brighton-based British-Romanian artist and curator. His exhibitions include Constable at Brighton, Something Out of Nothing, shown at the Brighton Art Museum, artist curator with an accompanying book by Scala Publishers, and also No New Thing Under the Sun at the Royal Academy of Arts in 2010-2011 as assistant artist curator. Peter Harrop's grandfather arrived in London from Romania in October 1939. Finally, last but not least, Fred Abrams, the Associate Director for Programs at Human Rights Watch, an organization that was featured several times, referenced 7 times in the movie, is responsible for training Human Rights Watch research staff, developing research methodologies, and conducting investigations in conflict areas around the world. He has documented human rights and laws of war violations in places such as Albania, Bangladesh, Iraq, Kosovo, Lebanon, Libya, and so forth, including in Gaza and the West Bank. He's authored numerous articles and op-eds elsewhere. Now my task is here to bring 3 of you into conversation with our honoree, our awardee tonight, Ai Weiwei. To do that, let me ask you to just talk for a moment about the importance and significance of Ai Weiwei and his work, his role in your areas of expertise, and then engage him with a question or 2, since it was a little bit of a halting response from the audience earlier. Why don't we start, perhaps, with Martin to continue the migration and refugee theme, then move on to Peter and Fred to broaden the conversation beyond migration and human flow to issues of art, activism, and human rights. So, Martin? So, the question was talk a little bit about whatever sort of your perspectives, the actions
So hi guys, I'm really glad to be here today, and that's a bit of a wide question actually. Yes. I think what I like about this documentary actually, I think you have a voice, you have a vision, and you have a creativity. And when you're in connection with yourself somehow, and you're an artist, it means that you go deep inside yourself. And when you're confronted to that, then it means that you were able to think and that you were able to show it to the world. I'm really glad that you did this documentary, and actually I'm sorry because I just watched it now and I need a bit of time to process information, and it's quite difficult to talk about it right after seeing something. But I think I found it really peaceful. I don't know how you succeed to do that, because it's a topic which is absolutely not peaceful. It's actually about human drama and war, and I find a lot of peace in what you succeed to show and to share with us. Thank you.
Like to react?
Hello.
You have a
Sorry.
voice.
When we decide to make the film, we have to think why we need to make a film as an artist. And there's so many films already existing about refugees, a lot of news, a lot of news clips or reportory images. So so the film is more focused on the humanity. So we try not to see it as just a tragedy, but rather to see it as a human condition. So refugee situation is not regional, we can see, and it's global, and it's not just temporary. It starts since human ever exist, human flow. It's existing. We all, one moment, or somehow as a refugee or children of a refugee. So to simply put that as a sad face, it doesn't fit into my understanding of humanity. You know, even in the worst situation, we still can see the beauty of those people. You know, the dignity of those people, and we see they're not different from us. They're more like someone we are familiar. You know, we try to give a little longer time to focus on their face or their normal activities. You know,
it's so normal. Sometimes you even forget they're in such a condition. So that's why I try to do. And there's a lot of beauty in these locations. We see beauty everywhere. So.
Thank you. Martin, why don't you talk for a moment about the connection between art and migration? Something narrated over.
I mean, like it's a very general question because like art is really wide, and like the point of art actually it's like you are able also to tell your story. You are able to detach yourself from who you are, what you've been through, by just focusing on doing something. Somehow you're becoming distant. You have no past, no future at that moment. You're just focusing on what you're doing. You know, I think that's one of the most powerful tools that we get at the moment. That's why we implement that with the kids, because they're so responsive to that. For me, that's the best way to show who you are. We live in a society that often we have like almost no right to exist. It's like we all have to say the same thing to be integrated, and somehow it's about difference. We are all different and we're all unique, as you show in your movie. For me, the relationship with art is that like you have the right to reveal who you are, to show your own medium, and to just express yourself. That's something that's really important. Everybody has the right to that.
Let's move on to Peter to look at a couple of other aspects of awareness.
Thank you very much. Well, firstly, thank you very much for getting back to my email and enabling this all to happen. It's very kind of you to come along tonight. I was very touched in your film as to how you took your own ego out of the film. Your artists are often full of ego, and quite a few of them, I mean, if you look at a lot of Weiwei artists, it's quite often about themselves in a funny sort of way. And in this film, you've in the past you've been an artist, and you are now an artist, but you've also been an architect, and now you consider yourself a filmmaker. Do you just sort of consider yourself a conduit for ideas? You've taken yours. In what way do you approach it, and how do you structure your thoughts?
The question is how well, honestly, I have to say I only realized that becomes something after. Before, we all born as baby. We don't really have a purpose or targets in our life, and my situation even more dramatic because I was born in China and spent early 20 years with my father only because he was exiled. I have to go with him to very extremely situations like in a desert area, Gobi desert area. So then later I went to the United States for 12 years trying to become an artist, but it's not. I almost say that's not possible. Not because I'm not, I don't have confidence, but only I think there's no chance for this Chinese boy, that time I was like 20s, and to become an artist or to make a living as an artist. So I started to do street portraits, to serve the tourists. When they come to New York City, I make a portrait, $15. Then I realized if you become a street artist, you cannot never really become an artist. So eventually I gave up, went back to China after 12 years without any success. My father was in hospital. So I have nothing to do in China because basically I cannot accept a society with censorship. And there's no way you can really speak your opinions or even to accept anything which would have conflicts with communist idea. So I started to do some editing books, underground books, which is a little bit dangerous, and opened an art place, trying to provide local artists some exhibition possibility. But I never think I want to do art again. It's like I already passed the stage. Then I did many things like doing architecture. I become quite well known as architect. The first show I had in Europe is an architecture show from China, from this ideas, this non-profit architecture gallery. Ideas, it's in Germany, in Berlin. So everything almost after I make something, I realize, oh, I'm an architect also. Then now I made this film, and people think, oh, you must be a filmmaker. So I am a filmmaker. Yeah. So I have to find what I have to do next.
Could you go into your father's story a little bit more? The Gardener's Dream. It's a story of just a page and a half, but he spent 20 years in prison for it, or exiled for it. Can you talk about the way totalitarian regimes oppose critical thinking? It's such a beautiful poem about multicultural approach.
My father is the first generation of Chinese contemporary intellectuals. When he's 19, he studied in Paris. He loves art. He wanted to become an artist. Then right after he moved back in the 1930s, he'd been put in jail for sentenced for 6 years. That means, it's that time called a leftist intellectual movement before the Communist Party. So in the jail, he started writing poetry. Then when he was released after 3 years, he already became quite well known because his poetry got published outside of jail, which is not possible in China today. That time, still, even you're in jail, you still can pass your writing to the lawyer. But today, if you're activist like me, you're in jail. Your mom doesn't even know where you're really being put, and there's no lawyer can see. So today is a much difficult situation. So my father later joined the Communist Revolution. Had become very influential because his poetry is very powerful, and it becomes the poet for Chinese independence. And he influenced the whole generation of revolutionaries. But after the communists took over the power, my father was in very high positions, something like head of a writers' association. But the communists realized those writers are no longer as comrades. They have too many questions, and they always make some arguments. So he was punished. And not only him, but 500,000 of the intellectuals, all being sent to called a re-education camp, which is kind of labor camp. So that's how that's the year I was born, 1957, called an anti-rightist camping. So when I was born, I was sent with him to very remote, very extremely difficult locations. That's why I don't feel being foreign to all those refugees, because I can easily understand their situation, and I can see I was part of them, and also can see they are part of me. They deeply have some, I share some understanding with all those people.
Okay, good evening. Thank you for this film. My favorite line was at the end, the Syrian astronaut who says, "Send the people to space." Maybe it's such a clear, simple, and good idea in a drama where solutions are difficult to find. Maybe he found one. But the other line I liked very much was the woman, I think in Greece, and she said, "I want the politicians to come here and sleep in the tent just one night, just to feel this." And, well, we cannot do that. We cannot go and sleep in a tent, but I felt, your film helped us get as close as possible to that tent. And that's the cherished partnership with human rights organizations, because groups like mine and Amnesty International and many, many others doing this work, frankly, our reports, sometimes they're a little boring. They're technical, they're legalistic. We're talking about laws and policies. And maybe the main word from this film that I would take is humanize, to tell stories, and that these are people, they are in you and we are in them. So it's just a reflection. And then I had a question for you is, as you transition or have transitioned or shifted from working on China and issues and human rights issues on China to a clearly an international and global issue, can you talk about that transition, and have you been liberated by not working on China, or maybe you feel rootless from not working on your country? Have you?
I was kind of activist before I left China in '79. We are first art group called the Star Group, made a contemporary art movement, and we started a war called the Democratic War, and later being crashed. Many of the members being sentenced. That's triggered my first leaving to New York. Then in New York City in the 90s, in the early 90s or late 80s, when the Desert Storm started, I was involved with anti-war movement. I was started recording, and also some gay movement, ACT UP. And that time I was young, and I don't know what can we really do about it. But I have natural interest about people who have a less voice and speak to the power. And I always had a question about power and establishment. That's because I was born with that. And in this film, if you see at the beginning, there's a few standing figures, which the style a little difference one by one. One child was against her mom, was standing there like portraits. Those images was taken before I was released. I was still in China under detention. I sent my studio colleagues to Iraq, a refugee camp, to to do some research. So we interviewed over hundreds of people and did all those portraits. We have hundreds of portraits like that. So that time I don't know what's going to be the project. I just want to know, I have curiosity, who they are, why they become refugees, stay in this kind of camp, what can it look like, and what's their future. But in their conversation, and repeatedly I hear people talk about they will go to, you ask them what's they plan to do next. I didn't pay much attention till 2015. I got my passport. I come to Berlin. Then I met someone told those refugees come to Germany. So that even something you did before, you never know it will start to come back. So I made decision to go to Lesbos, Greece, to really see how they approach the European land and how they've been treated. So my focus or conflicts with Chinese authorities is about basic human rights, freedom of speech. In those very essential values, we call it basic values, we have a strong difference in understanding or in the daily practice. So I made a lot of argument that made me become an enemy of the state, because probably I'm the single voice made so much strong argument openly on internet and talk to foreign people or press. So, but I always believe human rights as one, human dignity, humanity as one. It's not only China's problem. If I talk about human rights, it's an international problem. And I never have that perspective. So once I come to here, I'm eager to understand the human rights condition in Europe or in the democratic society. And the refugee crisis offered me a very unique opportunity to study global politics, because I never know what really happened in the Middle East or in Asian nations or in Mexico or all those Bangladesh. So give me an opportunity. So making this film is first this educational process for myself, to learn, to really see it, to have some kind of true knowledge.
If I may, how do you conceptualize power? If you're in your previous work, you're focused on the state, the Chinese state, party state, and that's a clear articulation of power. And now we have a diffuse, non-definable force that you're tackling and wrestling with. Is it a different approach for you, a different strategy, or a different?
I think as an artist and as an individual, I think the most powerful thing for me, or the tool for me, is to speak the truth, to find the truth and speak the truth, and to this, all those. I think truth teaches everything. We have to trust everybody has the ability, when they see the truth, they make judgment. Very often, here, same. I think the mainstream media still not giving the total truth. They represent certain values, certain structures, and those values and structures very often are misleading. So that makes our judgment less balanced. And but it's not easy. The truth is not from one point of view. It takes a lot of people to be involved to give different truths. So we need to be active. We need to really to provide the possibility to understand and to communicate.
you. We're quickly running out of time there. The organizers had asked me to ask a couple of questions. One was really about, it seems almost ridiculous now, how do you change consciousness? Can you change consciousness through a documentary, through a movie like this? It sounded like a very good question before I came here, and then I watched the movie, and it's truly a moving documentary. So how can you not be affected? How can your consciousness not be changed by the experience of seeing it? Yet I want to press you a little bit more on this issue. As an artist, as a documentary maker, can you change people's consciousness? How do you move it's beyond the immediate emotion that we all can carry on this emotion?
Well, it's a question I of course I have the answer, but if you hear the true answer, I cannot change anybody's conception or consciousness. Not I can't. The Pope also cannot do it. And so many people make those kind of effort. Still, you see, things happens as it repeatedly happens in history, and the same kind of tragic situation also repeatedly happen. The things we don't want, we feel shame about in the history, and happens today, and happens tomorrow, and happens somewhere next to us, or happens in between us. So I don't think I don't have that ambition to really change other people, but I do have ambition to make myself to live a life which I think should be honest and should be solid. That means I have to know the facts. I have to have my own judgment, to look at the world, and to have some kind of my own perspective. So we only have one life, and don't waste that life. And the most important to realize yourself is to become truthful to your own emotions, to have your own judgment. Otherwise, we somehow become a product of the society. Doesn't matter rich or privileged, but still, we are not living a life which a very truthful life. So for that, that's why I have to work like this.
Thank you. Thank you for these inspiring words. Question asked. The film slogan in some ways is when there's nowhere to go, nowhere is home. Do you feel yourself in Berlin at home?
I'm very privileged when I need help. Berlin or Germany has been helped, and many international groups has made such effort, and there's tremendous effort being made. And even I can never come out. Even when I was in China, people would say, when we make those effort toward Chinese authority, maybe it will hurt you. Maybe they will never let you out. I said, please hurt me. Defend those values. It's not for me. I do this, it's also not for me. So we think those values can be shared. That's why we think it's important. It's nothing to do with me. So Germany has been a great, very, very tolerant, and give me this teaching position in Utica, and also I have a studio here, so I can focus myself on it. So if I don't come to Germany, or we know this film, because I'm in the center of this kind of argument with German's position, and also we did our post-production in here, so I feel everything is really a place for you can really focus, and you really can produce, and there's a lot of space here.
Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to Ai Weiwei, the 2018 Jan Rațiu Democracy Awardee, and I now call on Nikolai Rațiu, the president of the foundation, to give the award.
I think you'll all agree that it has been the most extraordinary evening together here with Ai Weiwei tonight. And to see the film and to learn so much more about him as a human being, about his life, his art, and how this has generated and shaped his activism. He's probably the best known living contemporary artist whose prolific and incredibly varied work has given his activism enormous international impact. His voice, bringing world attention to the difficult issues we as human beings face: repression, the abuse of human rights, absence of the rule of law, and the continued incarceration of political prisoners world over. It was Ai Weiwei's exhibition, Trace, shown at the Alcatraz prison in California and the Hirshhorn Gallery in Washington, that really opened my eyes to Ai Weiwei's political activism, and Washington being the home of the Woodrow Wilson Center for International Studies, the host of our joint annual Jan Rațiu Democracy Award. The complementary fusion of the two was inevitable. It was therefore with great delight that Ai Weiwei, when we contacted him, agreed to accept the award. My father, Jan Rațiu, after whom the award is named, was himself a refugee from his native Romania, in exile for 50 years, even sentenced to death in absentia, with a dedicated death squad sent by the Ceausescu to eliminate him in late 1988. Fortunately, the events in '89 changed that plan, so it was abandoned. His mission in exile was also to be such a voice as Ai Weiwei speaks, to bring world attention to the repressive misery inflicted upon his own people by the totalitarian communist regime at the time in power in Romania. He was absolutely convinced that the continued existence of such a voice, his voice, however small it was, whatever it took, sometimes very unwelcome, it was the fact that it just existed and was there and was known to Romanians inside the country would continue their hope. It would give them hope forever throughout that time, that eventually freedom, justice and democracy would come to Romania. I'm certain that for many, many millions in China, and indeed around the world, the work and actions of Ai Weiwei do exactly that. And so with great respect, I'm singly honoured to present Ai Weiwei with the Jan Rațiu Democracy Award, actually the 2017, which for us is a very special year because it was actually my father Jan Rațiu's centenary year. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm deeply honored. It's a strange feeling we have to get our words for human rights, those very, very essential values we have to defend. And in certain location or certain period of time, people have to risk their life, or they will be remembered only because they defend those very essential values. But in many, many areas, when they think those rights has the logistic power or existing, but people are not really using those rights. So it's quite ironic. For every time I did receive several very very prestigious human rights awards, but every time I feel quite sad. I feel sad for the people who is so brave, so brilliant, but sacrificed for those very essential values which would help everybody, the people who will never know their rights even being violated. Could be in Africa or could be in somewhere in very unknown corner, but still we believe those rights need always being defended or fight, even in this society, in the so-called free society, because if anybody's rights being violated, we all hurt. Thank you deeply.
I'd just like to thank Anna and all her team here at Migration Hub for hosting us in this splendid building, which has been a great pleasure to be here, and thank you for looking after us.